Hello, everyone. So here we are. It's our regular Wednesday live, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Ryan Stanier from the Other Art Fair with me, founder of the Other Art Fair. Hello, Ryan.
Good afternoon.
And we've done our sound check and tech check. I've had a good tour of Ryan's apartment as we've tried to find a stable signal. And that's what we have to face every time when we're doing these is, you know, because you go into a different environment every time, we always have to have a bit of a tech check to make sure it's working. And you'll see that I've insisted on Ryan wearing headphones. So his poor child is in a cupboard somewhere crying because he's stolen his headphones. We won't talk about it.
No, they're pretty tight, actually.
I
think they're only designed for a 7-year-old's head.
Yeah. But it is better. We do get a much better sound when people are wearing headphones. So that's great. And thank you for taking the pain of a 7-year-old's headphones. At least it's not a 7-year-old's T-shirt. That would be looking very awkward.
No, but actually this jacket could be a 7-year-old's. It's pretty small.
Yeah. But good, Blue. We love the coordination.
Yeah,
we appreciate
exactly. It's all intentional.
We appreciate the aesthetic because we're all about the aesthetic. So today, lovely to see everyone, and everyone's arriving. And obviously, we go live on Facebook as well. So I'll check the Facebook in a minute. And if you've got questions, do add them in there. But also, please add your questions into the Ask a Question box, which you should all be able to see at the bottom of your screen. Because last week, lots of people were adding their questions into the sidebar. And I realised when I scrolled through afterwards that we had missed some of your questions. So hi, Nadine. Hi, Emma, Nick, Fran, Vincent. Lots of people arriving and saying hi. So thank you. So Ryan is, as I said, is the founder of the Other Art Fair. And today, we were just having a chat in the green room about meditation and distraction and how busy the world is and everything. But when we started art fairs, Ryan and I, like 9-10 years ago, the world was quite a different place. And it'd be really interesting to understand what motivated you to start that art fair. And, you know, put it in context. Tell us the story. It'd be really interesting to hear your thought pattern and why you decided to go the route you did.
Well, the world is a pretty different place only 2 months ago,
exactly.
Let alone 9 years ago.
Yeah, God, absolutely.
So I'm slowly coming to terms with that at the moment.
Yeah.
So I started the art fair back in 2011. And the very simple reason for it was that I had a lot of artist friends that were looking to meet galleries, or they were looking to sort of get connected to the art world in some way, maybe meet a curator, other artists. But also sell their work. And I just seem to remember that sort of supporting them in going to these shows that they'd be putting on, they'd sort of find like these sort of random little spaces on the outside of London. They'd put these amazing shows on. And ultimately, I noticed that the only people that were turning up were their sort of friends or their family. They'd turn up for the opening night. We'd all have a drink, really enjoy ourselves, say how great the work was. But ultimately, I would then talk to them afterwards. And they never really seemed to get much from it. I mean, what I mean by that is they didn't really sell any work. They didn't really meet any people they didn't know already. And while it was a good experience to put something on like that, ultimately you're not really progressing your career in any way. So I very simply had this idea of doing a fair where it's the artists themselves that take the booths rather than galleries. And then it was sort of an idea where we invited, get as much data together as possible and just really simply invite people, whether it be a gallery, anyone in the art world, journalists, anybody, but also try and get people that were. I also observed that around that time, a lot of my friends were sort of getting their first apartments and things, and they were looking to buy their first artworks. And if you don't know like the specific websites to go to, although even 9 years ago there weren't really many. You didn't know that there were open studios that you could go to, and maybe you're not that adventurous either. There really was there are not many places you can go to where you feel comfortable to talk about the artwork and and sort of potentially buy something.
Yeah.
So the idea was born of the fair. we sort of select 100, it's now 140 artists more or less for each fair. We get about 1,000 applications, and then those artists show their work at the fair, and it's sort of gone from there. I mean, it started off at the Barge House. That was 9 years ago, and I think since then, so just to give you a little bit of an idea of the trajectory, so that was back in 2011, where we did one show a year at the Barge House. Now we're doing 14 art fairs a year, and I'm running 2 in Sydney, 1 in Melbourne, 2 in Brooklyn, London, 3 in London, Chicago, 2 in Dallas, 2 in LA, and Toronto.
Wow.
So it's all gone pretty well. Last year we sold, I think at the fairs alone, we sold 12,000 artworks. And that's really just, and just to put that into context, there's 12,000 artworks of artists that, at very early stages of their career, they're looking for an opportunity. They're looking to sort of, get things going. And that's kind of where we are. So I'm pretty proud of that.
It's absolutely, you should be so proud of that, because that's just an amazing trajectory. I mean, very much that context that you describe of, the starting point of the art fair idea came about from trying to give artists an opportunity as opposed to giving galleries more of an opportunity. Because I know when, I started Pure in 2009, that the issue was very much the same. It was like, well, I can't get into a gallery in the first place. Yeah. I don't know how to get on that journey. And, Pure and, sorry, little white dot on my black jumper was aggravating me. Pure and the other art fair very much, took their own journeys on that. And the art fairs that you created, one of the things that, struck me back in the early days was what you were saying about bringing lots of people together in the space, and how the power of the collective, the power and embracing the power of the network. So it's everyone comes together, and it's good for all of those, bringing all the energy together into one place.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so important, and obviously that's what we're all sort of missing out on at the moment by not running fairs. And that's probably the toughest bit. Whilst we are still trying to do other things and still trying to keep people connected and doing things like this, which is great. But I think the one thing that everybody would probably agree with is that it's not a substitute for what was, or at least we don't know what the viable option necessarily is for what will be.
That's it. That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I always say Pure was born out of crisis. Pure was born out of the 2008 financial crash, when artists were losing the opportunity to show in galleries. Even those who had galleries were having their works returned. And we created a concept of a big, we didn't call it an art fair the first year because we didn't know the term art fair hadn't really become a thing at that point. We just called it a large, I think we did call it an art fair, but we didn't really know what we were doing. Exhibition where lots of artists came together and showed their work in one place, and we all managed it and marketed it as a group. And for me, I'm interested now because we can't do that, and we can't do that for the foreseeable future, because the one thing people don't want is to be bringing big groups of people together. That was the principle of the art fair concept, is to bring lots of people into one space at one time. What's the opportunity now, I wonder? What's the new art fair? I wonder.
I've got different ideas on it, which include, first of all, I don't want to say guessing. My feeling towards it is that art fairs will come back, and people will gather again. It will just, at least for the immediate future, it will just look and feel slightly different. So we're not going to have 1,500 people in the room at one point, but we'll probably be able to get 500 people in the room at one point. So, then you've got to look at how you keep that as a viable business model. Well, ultimately I want to get 15,000 people through over 4 days. So I've just got to look at it differently to how I do that. So we have like time sessions, and things like social distancing is going to remain, probably for at least the next year or so. So, we're definitely going to need to be doing some level of social distancing. There's going to be loads of hand washing facilities in the event. People are going to be wearing face masks if they can't social distance, all these sorts of things, all of which are becoming more familiar to us in our day-to-day lives. So it's not so unusual. I guess the way that we're looking at it is that we're looking at how do we put an interesting spin on it. So they're sort of, I don't want to say safety measures, but they're these sort of health and safety sort of precautions now that we all have to take. But it's like, how do we make that an interesting, I don't want to say a fun experience, but how do we make it a more sort of interesting experience? So something we've always focused on at the fair is the unexpected. So we're looking at touch points throughout the fair of when you come, those moments where you go and sort of see a guy, I don't know, I'm just thinking of some examples. Yeah. So in a recent fair, we had a space called Get Nude, Get Drawn. And we had 6 artists from Brooklyn were in this space. And you could go behind this curtain. You could then go and take your clothes off, then stand in front of them, and then they would draw you. And so then you walk away with these like 6 pictures of you drawn naked, right? Obviously, we were worried about whether people would be interested in doing this at all. But it actually sold out in the first day, which is incredible. I'm sure. Shows how much people love taking the clothes off.
There is a big nudist industry.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we just got to think about, how do we do stuff like that still?
Yeah, the experiential. I've always been an advocate of integrating the experiential into the art fair experience, and as I know you have, and we've done that conventionally in the past with music, or as you say, dynamic interactive art events, pop-ups and interesting performance, etc. And I absolutely agree. I think there's 2 sides of this. Yes, I absolutely agree. I think art fairs will come back, but they'll be different. They'll look and feel different because of the health and safety aspect. For us as event organizers, for me, it's the opportunity. Where's that opportunity? And definitely integrating more experiential moments, kind of holding patterns really for people. So you're not having you can have gatherings, but gatherings within groups, a bit like we do on the internet. It's like, okay, you're in that room, you're in that room, you're in that room. And then, now your time slots have changed. Well, that's quite exciting as well. It's like, right, gong. Now you can all go into a different room. I remember them doing things like that at the Tate, actually, at Tate Modern, where it'd be like, you're on a time slot. Do you remember the glass installation at Tate Modern where you had to go and queue up and you could walk through it? It was very scary. You walked over what felt like breaking glass. I don't know whether you remember that. It was a really cool, really super cool installation, but you had to get a time. It was like the, I'm sure you've done this now because you've got small children. When you go into the shoe shop and you have to take your number.
Oh, yeah.
And you take your number and then you have to wait to be called. I think things like that, where I've got a number, I'm number 39. And and now 39 to 74 has been called. Right, okay, I can go and do that. I think things like that absolutely is an opportunity for us as event organizers to actually bring more of our own creativity. I don't know about you, but I did feel like
definitely
become a bit of an administrator.
I guess so in some respects. And I guess it's interesting to think about things differently, because these are conversations we've always had, but it's now like, how do you, I have to say it now, but we had a brainstorm the other day, and a new colleague of mine called Charlotte, actually, she's based in our New York office, and she had this genius idea, because we're thinking about sort of how do you serve people drinks? In a safe way to sort of protect the bar staff, but also the customer. And she had this idea, which I think is brilliant, of doing like, I don't know if I can.
Go for it. It's all right. You're in a safe space. Just go for it. There's no competition. There's no competition. Everyone can do it. We shared loads of ideas last week. I was trademark. Okay.
She said about doing it's called like the glory hole bar. Okay, so you put your arm in a hole and then you take out a drink. So you're not actually then having to interact. And it's a really fun, sort of interesting sort of idea.
And
sort of
what
playing with
happens
that.
when you've got to be brave then, haven't you, to put that really pushes our
Yeah.
psychological barriers. You've got to put your
Yeah,
hand in, and you don't know, someone could really
Yeah.
mess with you, couldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
They
Maybe
could give you
do.
anything, and maybe they do. Yeah, maybe they give you
And
jelly.
yeah, well, I mean, maybe there's like gin and tonic, beer, wine, and you can put in, for the people that don't want to take a risk.
Yeah.
And there might be a lucky dip option.
Lucky dip. Yeah, I love that idea. Genius, Charlotte.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, keeper. She's a keeper.
She's a keeper.
She's a keeper. She's got good ideas. I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's being playful, isn't it? It's being playful. We've got the health and safety side that we have to do. That's hard, serious. That's serious shit. We've got to really take that seriously.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean we can't have, on the other flip side of that, looking at the opportunities, some really good fun.
Yeah.
What do people come to events for? They come to have a good time.
Exactly. They
come to enjoy themselves. So more of that. Get Charlotte, and we need more Charlotte brainstorming.
Yeah, exactly.
What other ideas has she got?
Well, I guess the other thing.
I'm thinking apple bobbing now.
Yeah. That could work.
That could work.
Also, the use of technology, I guess, is the other thing that we're considering at the moment. It's like what technologies are there out there that sort of enable us to, again, do things differently. And
have you tried anything?
Yeah, we're looking at various options at the moment. So we've launched our online studios because we had to cancel or postpone 7 of our fairs at the beginning of the year. We then launched something called the Other Art for Online Studios. So all of those artists that were meant to be showing with us, we then created a profile for them online, and we've been selling their work ever since. And that's been going, really well.
Yeah.
But I guess sort of moving forward, I'm now thinking about potentially, I don't know, ideas, what does it look like to run a virtual art fair?
Yeah.
What about having this sort of online experience where we know that people are going to be flying less, we know they're going to be traveling less. So what does it take for us to build a replica of this Sydney art fair? So somebody in, I don't know, Oklahoma can go online and actually get an experience of going to an art fair in Sydney, seeing all the Australian-based artists, being able to interact with them, potentially talking to them, getting the work explained, and actually having that sort of visitor experience, of sort of migrating your way around. Yeah,
absolutely. As you know, I was talking to you about the event that, we developed very quickly on the hoof using this crowdcast platform, and that's very much that experience. I wanted to make sure that as part of the offering, there was a very live angle to it, so people could actually come on and talk to the artist and buy directly from the artist. To go, I'd really love that piece. Can I buy it? Yes. What's your email? Put your email in the sidebar. I'll contact you. Tell me the story. And that's, definitely Art 360, which is what we're developing. And we've launched it already. It's definitely got some of that vibe, but it's only small. We can only do it on a, we're only a small company. We're not cross global. We'd like to be, but we're not at the moment. So we're only being able to do that with 180 artists and then 30 in their studios, because that's the capacity that we can.
Still quite a lot. I mean, I know
it's still a lot.
I mean, that's
it's still a lot. We've done a lot of work, and I did suggest 360 artists, and as you can imagine, I had virtual arrows and bricks chucked at me by the team, going, "Are you mad? We can't do that." We haven't got the capacity, but they settled at 180, and I thought that was quite a big win for me, that I managed to persuade them at that level. But it'll be interesting to see. We're going to do that in September. It'll be interesting. I'd really appreciate your feedback when you see it, as to what you think and how you think we could potentially develop that. I know, you started off, as you say, at the Barge House in London. And then what do you think was the moment when you pivoted globally? What do you think that happened and enabled you to do that?
Well, there's two things. I think there's a turning point for us. I think it's 2014 when I actually met Tracy Emin and convinced her to do the art fair. And I think her participating really sort of changed a lot for us. It sort of elevated the fair quite considerably. Yeah, and the profile especially. Then in 2016 was a key point when we partnered up with Saatchi Art. So Saatchi Art being for those who don't know, who is like the largest online art gallery for artists. I think they have somewhere between 80 and 100,000 artists now on their platform. And the whole idea was, and why I was so interested to partner with them is that it fed into sort of this initial idea I had when I started the fair, which was, how do I work with artists all year round? So I can put on a live event, an art fair, and work with them for 4 days and help sell their work. But how do we sort of sell their work all year round? I'm getting all this data from people that are coming through the door.
Yeah.
How do we keep their profiles alive all year round? And obviously working with Saatchi Art has now enabled us to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? That when you look at art fairs, they're like a little isolated moment in time.
Yeah.
And, I know that we went through that process as well of how do we carry on working with the artist afterwards, because otherwise they don't get the full benefit of the experience just in that full day, in that 4-day moment.
Yeah.
Well,
there's only so much that can be done.
Yeah. Exactly. We're only human. You can only get as much traction in that short period of time to sell the work. Whereas if you can come up with ideas that keep that going, and again, going back to that, what's the opportunity now? I think actually this has definitely created some gaps where we think, and you're obviously thinking the same, that actually we don't have to go back to just doing art fairs or just the model that we were doing before. We can do someone said to me, what you're going to do? I said, I'm going to do a mashup of everything. It'll be a mashup afterwards. It'll be a mashup of live. It'll be a mashup of some of this that we've been doing online. We'll definitely be carrying all of the learning forward so that what comes out will probably not be known for about another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I mean, even though we're sort of thinking about virtual art fairs at the moment and what that looks like, there's lots of technology out there and sort of people sort of pitching the idea. I haven't seen anything yet, which convinces me yet of what it will actually look like the successful version. I think there's sort of the first version's out. I still think it's quite limited on what you can do. And because ultimately, fundamentally, the most important thing is how do we sell art?
Yeah, that's what we're there for.
If it's just an experience online and people are just visiting it just to go and see what it's like, then it's kind of not serving its purpose until it gets to a place where you can really be doing well through sales and sort of helping artists that way. Then
they always have to eat and pay their mortgage like anyone else, and that's the reality of life. You still got to pay your bills, and so we need to provide platforms and opportunities that do that. And I think interestingly, where we've been following the technology for so long, as humans, we've been following the technology. All of a sudden in this episode of lockdown, the technology is having to follow us. It's like, okay, this is what we want to do. Yeah. Where's the technology to do that? Oh, it doesn't exist. And I know when I found this Crowdcast platform, I went on and I said to the people who developed it, okay, tell me what it can do. And they were like, well, hang on a minute. We've only been doing this for about a year, and we were doing it for 14 people in California. Yeah. We weren't expecting it, you to want to come on and do, live broadcasts every week. And I was like, well, I do. And I want to share my screen with YouTube videos and and they're like, okay, you're going to have to wait for us to catch up with you and develop the technology kind of in your wake. And so we won't know, will we, what it's going to look like for a few years, because suddenly the technology revolution is being driven by our need.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Whereas prior to that, we were kind of going, oh, that's now available, we can do that. That's now available, we can do that. And we're now saying, oh, actually, I need this now. Can you do this? And they're going, no, we haven't got that yet. So I'm really fascinated by that aspect as well, that has come about through this moment in time of the pandemic. And everybody's experienced that pandemic differently. I know that you, having a global business, will presumably experienced it different going in and probably will experience it differently going out to me, someone who's running just a business in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing is, like, when we're looking at what fairs we're going to be running later on in the year, like what we're doing in London, where you're having to look at government regulations into what you can do and what their plans are for was it easing us out of lockdown, or however they want to put it, in these different phases. I guess we've got to be doing that for 8 different cities. And also bearing in mind, whereas in the UK, it's all under one sort of government rule essentially, whereas in the US, every state runs differently. So what's happening in Dallas is going to be very different to what's happening in LA or New York or wherever else.
Wow.
So we've really just got to keep on top of all of that. And the other thing is, it's really not clear.
No,
it's really not clear.
I think we've had these conversations with other people, and it's, I think because we are in a democracy, very clear democracy, a lot of it is being left to us to make decisions for ourselves. And whereas in some countries like France and Spain and Italy, the rules have been very clear and tightly adhered to and enforced with police, etc. Whereas we don't have that here, or you're not going to have that in America. I know in Australia because my husband, I don't know whether you remember, he works for an Australian bank. And
who does he work for?
He works for CBA.
Oh, right.
Commonwealth Bank of Australia.
Yeah.
He's right here. He's sharing my office right now. He could come into view at any minute. So he's obviously, all their guys are working from home. But I know they've experienced the pandemic quite differently over there because they closed their borders earlier. So they're opening up a lot quicker over there.
Yeah, like pubs and restaurants and things like that started to open now, and the beaches are open.
Yeah, I had a call from someone in France saying the pubs and restaurants and the beaches are opening as well down there, which is good. Anyone thinking of a holiday?
Yeah, but the
Europe's
problem is you have
good.
to go into quarantine.
I know.
That's the problem.
2 weeks. I was saying, if we drove down, where it's 11 hours from our house, once we get across the tunnel, we'd have to stop. And if we stop, we've got to do 2 weeks quarantine. It's going to take us about 3 months to get to our house, which is, not practical really. So we're probably just going to have to stay here and, and hope that the weather improves again. It has been beautiful. But so from a global perspective, at the moment, you've postponed the UK fairs until November?
October.
And are you in the same venues, or have you had to change venues?
Yeah. No, Truman Brewery. And we've got pretty good relationships with all of our venues. So they've been very accommodating and sort of moving dates and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then, so is that the first one you'll do?
The first fair that are you going to test me now? The first one will actually be in Sydney. So that's mid-September. Then at the end of September, we're doing LA. Then at the beginning of October, beginning of October, then we're doing London, Chicago, and Dallas. So we're still trying to do 8 to 9 fairs this year.
Yeah, in the order, because I know locally to here, most of the art fairs, the small, so the next tier down, the ones, no, not the London and the other, but the next tier down have all cancelled. They've all been cancelled for this year. So I know that artists are very keen to know what the opportunities are because they need to sell, as you said, they need to sell their work.
Exactly. The problem is also there's a cost implication to all of this as well, meaning that to put on an event, like all the safety measures that you have to go through, it's a huge cost. I mean, you have to considerably increase cleaning, security, all of these different measures. So that means that lots aren't running this year.
Yeah, that means that, for the smaller art fairs that are probably run by committee, who aren't run for profit, they simply can't do that because they can't go to the artist. Or instead of paying your normal £100, we need you to pay £500.
Exactly.
It's just not practical because most artists at that level are not going to be going to have any hope of selling that level of work to cover their cost plus their time. And so it is looking at all of those other opportunities. And I know with the artists that I work with directly one-to-one, that, and through the membership, that there is a level of anxiety about that, and it's and I think it's encouraging. It's encouraging that the next level up is maintaining. So that there is a route. It's just now working out how that friends and family level, the ones who would have been still selling to their friends and family, maybe just getting up to the one more level on, what the opportunities are for them. And
well, I would say, I mean, what we're observing at the moment is that online sales are going very well. So if you can have, as an artist, you can have a strong online presence, then I think, there are a lot of opportunities that exist for you there. And what I mean by that is, Instagram is the main place for that. I mean, if you have a strong Instagram account and focus on getting your followers up and getting some interesting content on there. I mean, I know a lot of artists that almost survive only through selling on Instagram.
It's quite saturated now, especially during the last 3 months. Instagram has become, I absolutely agree with you. I think online is a place for them to explore, and looking at the online platforms. Instagram, I have felt, has become, especially with the artist support pledge. Have you seen that going on? I think that has caused a bit of saturation. But I do think, like as you said, Saatchi Online.
Saatchi is a great platform.
Absolutely great platform, because
Everybody
they're
should
promoting.
Yeah, I think I think every artist should have a profile on that. And the key for that working for you, because lots of artists say to me, well, I'm just going to be one of 80,000 artists on there. Yeah, but the reality is that if you're an active artist on it, meaning that you're constantly uploading work, you're in contact with the curators, you're proactive on it, then it works. Then you make lots of sales. I mean,
we were saying this. We were saying this just before we came on air, weren't we? That it's an energy exchange, and we always say the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So if you are interactive with us, in life, that's just a rule for life. The more you put in, the more you get out. This energy, the laws of abundance. If you invest your energy in something, you're going to get something back from it. And people who interact with us and email us and say, oh, can I have a chat, and get involved with, they get so much more out of the experience than the ones who come along and go, I just turned up for that day, I didn't interact, I left, but I didn't sell anything. I'm like, no. You do have to invest your energy, because that's how you get energy back. And that's really important, that if you go onto these platforms, and I was having a conversation with someone this morning about Facebook, and I said, Facebook own your followers. Same with Instagram, they're theirs. You have to work out how you can have a smaller but dynamic audience and grow that gradually. There's no point going, I've got 20,000 people in my audience, if half of them are robots or some GI from America who's never going to buy your work. You do need to actively keep your audience clean, manage it, do it as you would any other business. You go, right, I'm going to look at my audience. No, these people aren't active. I need them out of my audience. Actively remove them from your audience, so that the people that Facebook and Instagram algorithm is showing your work to is people who actually are likely to engage with you and are likely to buy it. I do think you have to invest your time in those platforms.
And I totally understand from an artist's perspective. It's for a lot of them, it's the last thing you want to do. You want to focus on making new work and talking about your work, rather than sort of focusing on the business side, because ultimately, it's the business side of it, which is the business marketing and sales. But and look, I totally get it as well. I mean, the hardest thing for me running a fair is we run workshops in the lead up to the event, and we'll be talking to artists, and I try and meet as many people as possible. And we talk about just to talk about the experience of what it's like to be on site for 4 days, and give them all the tips. Now, the hardest thing for me is then to see artists, like you say, that don't do it necessarily because they're sitting in their chair. But I feel such pain for them, because I know that it's so difficult. If you're not an extroverted person, then it's so against your nature to then be interacting with people, and sort of, and ultimately you have to be a bit charismatic, and you have to be interesting. I mean, what a horrible, difficult experience it is.
Yeah, we all come to this with our own personalities. And, I know 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. I wanted to hide behind a whole group of people. I knew all the business stuff. I knew how to do it technically. I'm like, yeah, I can set this up for you technically. Don't ask me to stand up in front of people and talk to them. And you have to, but I realized that it was only going to be successful if I was prepared, like you say, to put myself out there, to be brave, do it scared, and just get on with it. And now I found myself in the last 3 months having to sit and stare at a screen of myself, which has been quite horrific. But it's really important, because there is a very important message here, is that, all of these things are there for you. They're all there. It's just how you access them. We all understand. Some people find it difficult. Try and do it with get in with find a tribe. Find your tribe, like Saatchi Online. Find a tribe who can support you if you find that really difficult. And as you do it and grow a little bit of resilience every time, you'll find that you'll grow and you will be able to do it. You'll get there in the end. But do it slowly, as it works for you. We're not all outward extroverts. The world would be a very exhausting place if we were. Sometimes introverts come into the fair to buy work, and they love it when they find someone who's quite quiet and introverted. They're attracted to that kind of person. So it is just finding the right platform for you. And as I say, I agree, Instagram is great. It is quite saturated, so you have to have your unique thing. You have to really push your unique angle. Facebook for an older market is good. Facebook groups I found works really well. Setting up a little group and doing something personal in a group. Doing one of the online marketplace. We've just put together, or Molly, my assistant, has just put together a how to sell your artwork online guide. That's on Issue if anyone wants to go in and have a look at that. And anyone who applies to us for any of our events like the Art 360 or the Back to Basics gets a free copy of that. So that's great. I'm just going to go and have a quick look at the questions now. I can see some comments being made in the side here.
Susan made a good point.
So teams work well where possible. Someone who can pair up with another artist group where work absolutely. And you can do that with the other art fair, can't you? You can have do 2 artists in one booth.
Well, you can either share a booth for somebody, or alternatively, if you're doing a sort of show on your own, then we always encourage you to come with somebody. So somebody that knows your work, whether that be a friend or somebody that works in art, or just somebody that can talk about your work. And that's nicer, isn't it? Yeah, it's nicer, but also there's a practical side to it as well. Meaning that if you're on your own, you can only talk to one person. Most of the time, more than one person is standing outside your booth trying to look at your work. So then at least you got 2 opportunities for sale. Yeah, absolutely. Claire's saying, do you remember Whitstable? I'm not that. I think that's personal to you, Ryan. Claire. Oh no, Claire. Oh, no, Claire. So someone in the chat is Claire, presumably. Oh, right. So we've got some questions. Let's go through some questions. So there are many big galleries. If you click on the ask a question box at the bottom, you'll be able to read these for yourself. There are many big galleries that show collectible work and smaller galleries that show not so collectible work. The artists that you show are prepared to face customers, whereas some do not want to face customers. Do you feel, and I mean this as part of the discussion, that you are undermining galleries for the not so savvy artist? Hold on, so let me just understand it. So there are many galleries that show collectible work and small galleries that show not so. The artists that show. Yeah, right. Do you feel? I see. So I see what he's saying. So he's saying by having an art fair. Yeah. Are we undermining the galleries for those that aren't so savvy, aren't so switched on? I don't think so. I think it's just another offering. Yeah, I mean, I think we're also very clear. Like we're a fair, which we're very not against galleries at all. In a perfect world, a gallerist would come to the other art fair and they would find an artist that they want to represent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the best outcome.
Yeah,
for
that's
us
always
and
the
for the artist.
yeah, that's always the outcome that we've driven for, is that you get as lot
they're the stories we want to tell.
Yeah, lots of galleries.
But
and
I would say I know how desperately difficult it is for everybody at the moment, whether that be an artist, a fair, or a gallerist. I mean, it's just really, really difficult.
Yeah.
As you know, especially I know lots. Probably my closest people to me in the industry are gallerists, and they're in full support, and they see what we're doing. We're not sort of taking any artists away from galleries.
No.
Lots of our artists will work with galleries as well. I often do on introductions to galleries to artists, if I think they're sort of appropriate and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I hope that answers the question.
I see your the fair that you do and the way that we do them as very much being a feeder for galleries.
Yeah.
And also helping the artists to become a bit more confident, and that's good for the galleries too. So I think that hopefully that answers. And if it's not, I'm sure Peter will come back and ask us another question.
Yeah.
So Gabrielle has asked a couple of questions. What do you think about Etsy, the site Etsy?
Yeah, Etsy's good.
And is the commission taken by galleries very high?
Well, typically it's around 50% for a gallery.
Yeah.
That's the sort of standard rate. I mean, it does vary, doesn't it? I mean, Saatchi Art is 35%.
So Saatchi online takes 35%.
Right.
I think most art galleries locally take between 40 and 45%.
Right.
But this obviously is a spectrum.
Yeah.
And then in London, I think the standard is 50, isn't it? But it can go over 50. And I have heard of situations where it's been 60%.
I've heard 70.
Oh, yeah. And, that's a massive thing to swallow for an artist. And I think, galleries are trying to make a living too, aren't they? And if they're in an environment where the rates are very high and the rents are very high and they're having to spend a lot of money and take all the risk up front, they take all the risk up front with the rental of the gallery. They take all the risk up front with going to an art fair, a gallery-based art fair like the Affordable or Art Basel or whatever they do. Yeah. They take the risk. Sometimes they feel that they're going to put on a higher percentage for artists. And I suppose what you have to do is decide whether that's an environment you want to be in, whether that's is that the park you want to play in? You've always got a decision to make in these contexts. Yes, it's high. I think we all recognize it's high. But they have a living to make too. And if we don't have galleries, you won't have an opportunity to sell your work. You'll be left with either showing it yourself or putting it online. So I would describe the commission as a necessary evil. You have to then decide what you want. It's down to you.
And you price your work accordingly.
Yeah, price your work, absolutely. So yes, Etsy is a great online platform, especially for someone like a glass artist. It's definitely a good place to be. And I'm just going to do done answering that one as well. So this is from Fran. A new gallery in Lewes was due to open as lockdown started, so they immediately started showing online. Also, Hastings Contemporary uses a robot to show their current exhibition. I guess everyone will adjust to what suits them best. Have you seen that, Ryan? The robot?
I haven't seen the robot. No, that sounds great.
Super cool. Might actually be something like you were just saying earlier about how can we give the experience of an art fair to people in Dallas of the one in Sydney.
Yeah.
The robot is super cool because it can go around with a curator and the curator can talk to the gallerists. And I'm not sure at the moment whether it's in two-way, but wouldn't that be cool if it was a two-way robot? So it's like a camera on wheels basically, and it's going round.
But how's that? The only thing I haven't seen it, right? But how does that elevate the experience of? I mean, ultimately, if what we're trying to achieve is to sell art, how is that going to enhance what's already available? So just simply seeing artwork online, seeing art online.
It has to be dynamic to make it have more value, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It has to be dynamic. So you have to be able to have the dialogue across the screen.
Yeah.
You can't have the dialogue across the screen. That is just a remote experience of an exhibition. But it's a good step forward, isn't it? Then, as I said,
I'd have a look into it.
How do you then get that technology to move on to suit what you're looking for, which is this dynamic experience? Because for me, it has to be dynamic. I want people like we're having now, clearly talking on the, having a conversation with us. We're responding to their questions in real time. So hopefully, Fran, that's a great suggestion. And I think, Ryan, that's something that maybe ask Charlotte. She's very good at all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. She'll know.
She'll know. Jonathan Haitley says, online fairs, sales technology. What are your thoughts about timed art auctions? For example, selected artworks have a timed auction limit and countdown to generate interest to those potential customers who have a watch list. Oh, that was by Serena.
I mean, it does work, I think.
Does it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of that, actually.
Yeah, I think it works quite well, actually. I mean, not every online platform will have that technology. I think Saatchi do. I think Artfinder do. So there's a few out there. I mean, it works, doesn't it? I mean, I know for a fact, I mean, if I'm buying anything online and I've got that little box ticking down, it's going to make me make a decision. Ultimately, that's why I think art fairs work, because you have this defined period of time where you have to make a decision. So it's 4 days, and it might be, and you have to, that you have to make your decision in that period of time, otherwise you might miss out.
Yeah, it's the rarity.
And I guess that's what we're always thinking about as well. Whatever we're doing online, it's like, how do you create that suspense? Yeah. And how do you get that sort of thing? Whereas this is definitely a way that works.
Yeah, scarcity. It's working on the scarcity and rarity model, which isn't that what we're always working with artworks, is like, there's only one of them. Buy it now or you will have missed it. So we're working on that scarcity rarity model anyway. And when we're talking about artists developing their career, and if their aspirations are quite high, it's like, well, don't be prolific. Don't literally saturate the market, because if you've saturated the market, then you've lost the scarcity rarity option. So I think I've seen the Matthew Barrows thing, and I see that some artists are going, well, I've put these up and these are up for 4 days, and if you don't buy them then that's it. And I see them sell really quickly on a basis of, they're only there for 4 days. So I think it's definitely worth a go, isn't it? It's definitely worth having a go. So you say that Saatchi have got that technology to do that?
I think they're doing that. Yeah, I should know, but they are. No, I know they are.
So Gabrielle, can we apply to Ryan to be part of his shows? What are the costs for the art fairs? So yes, you
Absolutely.
can.
Yeah, go for it. It's
yes,
all online.
You can.
It's on the website otherartfair.com, theotherartfair.com. And you then select what fair you want to apply for, and then you go to artist and then apply, and then there's a short form that you just simply fill out.
There's always a form.
There's always a form.
And what do you think about the Artist Pledge? Well, I mean, personally, I think it's been a great initiative for artists to feel like they're doing something for themselves.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It got artists selling lots of work during this very difficult period.
Yeah, I've bought some. Have you bought anything? Have you bought anything through the Artist Pledge?
I did contact one artist, I'm still waiting to hear back from her, actually. She's an artist that actually has done the other art fair.
You need to prompt her.
I know.
I've bought a couple of pieces now. I bought a piece from, or several pieces from artists that I was already aware of, and I'm watching one. I'm watching one. They haven't put up the piece that I want yet, but I'm like, keep doing it, because I'm watching. And that particular artist is the one that does they're this week's artworks, and if you don't buy them, then that's it, it's gone. And I'm like, okay, you've piqued my interest now, and I'm interested. So yeah, that kind of plays into the answer that we had just now. It is about the scarcity and rarity. I'm thinking, oh, what if the one I want never appears? And I missed two of those ones, and I quite liked that one, so it does kind of play on my mind a little bit. I'm like, no, it's okay, be brave. I'm sure the one that the perfect one for you will come along. But yeah, I have bought a few through that artist page. The only thing I was concerned about was it did seem to be artists buying artists, and it would be good. So I've been talking about it a lot on here, because I think I've said we've got a collector's base, and I have been promoting it to the collectors, saying, have you heard of this? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you should get on, because if there's artists there who you really like, they're selling works for £200. It's a really good starting point if you wanted to buy some, get your children involved
definitely
in artwork. This is, get them to pick some. So I really love that concept. I think the opportunity for the Artist Pledge is still, we've only scratched the surface of that. I think there's a massive opportunity for the emerging collector in that concept.
I agree.
That someone like you, with the capacity that you have, could definitely take on and, look at how you could segue something like that into what you're offering with the art fair, because it's a massive thing for collectors and getting, kids buying. It's maximum £200. I've seen loads of stuff for like 30-50 quid that if you can get the younger audience interested now, they're the buyers of the future, aren't they? So it looks like we might have another question. Let's have a go down. Oh yeah. Okay, so we've got Myrna. For scarcity, what happens if you do 4 days promo and it's not sold? Then you can't post it again, as it looks like you've made it up. How do you deal with that? So it goes up on auction, or and they say it's for 4 days, and then they don't sell it. What do they do then? Because they can't put it back up again, because it's like when we say there's a deadline to submit, and then you get to the deadline and you go, I've extended the deadline, and you lose all credibility.
No, exactly. I think you just have to take it down.
You just have to take it down.
And then try again at another time.
That's what I would say. Is
I would some space in between.
I would say give the put up a different piece, say, spin it. That was great. Thank you all for taking so much attention. You showed so much interest in that piece. I've put another piece up. So you kind of engender a bit more excitement, because you've spun it that everyone was interested. And so much so that you put another piece up, and you put something different. And then in like 6 months' time, you bring that piece back and you show that piece again. The right buyer hasn't seen it. Absolutely. The right buyer didn't see it. It's not that it wasn't right. It's not wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right buyer, as we say, you've got previously 1,500, 5,000 people walking through a fair. It's a bit like, selling houses, isn't it? It's like you've got a massive market for buying semi-detached, and you've got a smaller market for buying detached, and you've got a tiny market for mansions. It's exactly the same in the art world, where however you want to do your analogy. I would say either the houses or are you selling at the Lidl level, or are you at the Fortnum and Mason level? And if you're up there, then there's going to be less people walking by who've got that money and are able to buy from you. So always see it as an opportunity to go, that was an excitement. Let's kind of keep building on the excitement, keep going and build the momentum. So hopefully that answers your question, Myrna. Just keep going and build on the momentum. I'm just trying to find where Myrna's question was there, done answering. And then we've got another one here from Kimball. Howdy, one of the issues I've found with selling online is that from photographs, you don't really get a good sense of what the painting really looks like. What kind of possibilities are there for videos of painting for online versions of the other art fair?
You may need to read videos of your work and upload those as well.
Yeah, so you can do videos.
Yeah, you can do videos. Yeah.
Yeah, we're promoting videos now. We're saying with the Art 360 event, send us a video. We'll embed it into the magazine. We'll put it onto YouTube. We'll show it on social media.
Yeah.
Because people want to see something dynamic and exciting, don't they?
Yeah. No, they definitely do.
Yeah, so answering that one.
And the more
Yes.
you get recognized as an artist as well, the more people have confidence in buying from you, whether that be online or at a fair or in a gallery. So I think as an artist, you really have to think about your sort of profile.
Yes.
And sort of building that.
Isn't that the same for all of us? We have to build up a trust.
Yeah. And
it's building trust.
I think somebody mentioned a little bit earlier on, which was like something about how do I build my profile or something?
Yeah.
Or how do I stand out? And I think it's not, I think if that's your starting point of how do I stand out, I think you might not eventually get there. I think it's more about considering who you are as an individual and what you're saying with your work, and not really worried about, if you start from the viewer's perspective, then you might get it wrong. Whereas if you're thinking just all about authenticity and like, what's your message? Don't worry about what anyone else thinks. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the truth will come through and people will be able to see that. I mean, often I do see, I do see sometimes it's, well, okay, so it's so obvious to me when an artist is making artwork for the viewer.
Yeah.
And I think, it's very difficult to connect to that type of work.
Yeah. So you're being driven by, so I would describe that as more of a retail artist. They're being driven by the audience. They're a retailer. So when we're saying what kind of artist you want to be, what's your aspiration? Is it a fine artist? Is it a retail artist? If it's a retail artist, there is a forum for you. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just different. But you have to find your tribe. You have to find your forum for that when you're doing
totally.
more of a retail perspective, and be authentic in that. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you maintain your authenticity and your integrity, speak what you mean.
Yeah.
Be plain, in plain English or whatever language you speak, and be authentic in your message. Don't try and be indirect and talking riddles, because people don't respond to that. And keep it direct. This is what I am. Be honest about it, and then you'll find your following. You'll find your audience. It will find you. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
So that was we've done that. What sort of galleries are Ryan? Do you have many glass artists exhibiting with you?
We don't, not necessarily. No.
No.
It's unusual. It's not so that we wouldn't. It's just.
Yeah. I think we've got quite a few glass artists and of quite a high level. And, I think the other art fair is something I would encourage them to do.
Yeah.
And to apply for, having seen how successful people are, and definitely apply and do it in conjunction with the Saatchi Online as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, we've answered that one. And then I find a lot of people decide on buying pieces when they see them in the flesh, as they can see the quality, scale, and the frame, etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we all agree with that. We all agree. And look, there's some work which photographs better and shows better online than others, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing really that sort of replaces the real life experience. Also, the connection to the artist. I mean, I'd say almost every piece I've bought has not been solely because I've fallen in love with the art. It's almost I've fallen in love with the artist as well. And I think that's a lot harder sort of to get across online.
Yeah, it's a relationship, isn't it? It's that relationship of that you build with someone. And I know I collect a lot of artists because of the relationship. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing one of my all-time favorite artists that I've been collecting for like 25 years during July as part of the Art 360, and he's based in San Francisco. He's called Daniel Merriman, and I'm very excited to interview him. And I've been collecting him for a while, and pretty much, if he puts it out, he knows he's going to get me on at the end of the hook, because I like him as a person. I like his family. I have a relationship with him, and I love his work. So you're all in on every trigger that you're going to see. So Hildegard said, I did exhibit my glass 2D artwork at the March 2018 one and found a London gallery that way. Thank you to the other art fair. Yes, go Hildegard. Go Hildegard. So for selecting, so thank you for selecting my work. I'm sure Ryan would say you're very welcome.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing the fair.
Yeah, no, I remember Hildegard doing it and the gallery coming out of it. So how often do you do these promo selling so it will be the right balance? Well, again, that's this scarcity and rarity thing. You don't want to be over saturating the market all the time. It's a balance of everything. You do an art fair, you do a promo, you do something on Instagram, you do some other work with locally with a gallery, just try and get a balance of everything, because it's all a gradual growth in your trajectory as an artist, and try and move outside of your bubble. So if you're selling mainly in London, I don't know about how many submissions you get for the other art fairs in other places in the world from artists who are based in the UK. Is that a thing?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. I think the ones that do really well in London will then apply to other fairs. Although I would say that at least for the rest of this year, we're going to discourage people from doing international fairs.
Do you think there's a way of helping them do that?
Sorry?
Do you think there could be a way of helping people to do that, which would mean they didn't have to travel?
I think it's a bit early to say.
Yeah.
Meaning that, in theory, you could send work and you could have curators or salespeople on a booth, and so their work could still be shown. I don't think that's necessarily the solution. Also, there's issues around customs at the moment and things going in and out. So that's, I think, for the remainder of this year. Thinking about the sort of future of fairs, a lot is being said at the moment is that you've got these big international art fairs. They're the ones that are going to struggle. They're the ones that are going to really have problems, because they've got 100,000 collectors or visitors coming in from every country in the world. They've got galleries coming in from everywhere in the world. I mean, it's like, how do they keep that business model going? That's going to be a real challenge. Fundamentally, our fairs are local fairs for local artists, supporting local artists for local collectors in the main, right? So, if we're doing a fair in London, the majority are London artists, and that's what we're going to be more focused on. Not only London artists, it's not London centric, it's more like UK artists, right?
Yeah, UK.
UK artists. So, and it's how do we connect to then UK collectors? And that's going to be for all of our fairs, I think.
Yeah.
So, we've got a more, I don't know, I say an easier, better chance sort of with that approach, not having the sort of worry about people flying in. So,
sorry, there was a bit of noise in the background here. As a child finished his school day learning, flying, I could see him running up towards my office, and I was like, there's going to be a yell as he comes. So I was like, quick, toggle mic off. But he's okay. He's outside now. You probably can hear him. So, I think you're right. But that does still leave that problem of how do people expand their audience outside of their bubble. And in the UK, people in Manchester can come to London and London to Manchester. Do you think there is an opportunity for you to expand the other art fairs within the UK to other centres?
I wouldn't say no. I mean, the obvious choices would be Manchester. Although I'm very good friends with the person that runs the guy that runs the Buy Art Fair and also Manchester Contemporary. And it's a smaller market, and I don't think, I wouldn't want to go in and compete with him. No, I mean, it's not necessary. I think he's doing a good job already. We've done Bristol before. Bristol is, it's a challenging market. I mean, we rely on huge footfall of people coming through, and also in a position to be spending money. And because our price points are sort of at the lower end, we need to be selling quite a lot. And I think we found that quite a challenge in Bristol. So it's not to say that we wouldn't do another regional fair. And perhaps this means that, will make us look at that again. But I mean, nothing this year or probably next.
No, I know we've cancelled our fair for this year and said we'll do something at some point when it's possible. But as you say, because it's so expensive to run an art fair, in the first instance, with all the everything you have to hire anyway, just adding in that extra level of health and safety just does put its viability under question a little bit. But that's interesting, because if we're not going to be traveling and the opportunities to expand your network of buyers outside of the UK is shrinking for a period of time, then it's interesting, how are you going to expand within the market that you're in? And that's another question, isn't it? So there's lots of opportunities for us as event organisers to think about what we could do. So I think we're coming up to 2:05, so we've gone over. I knew this would happen. I knew when I've got you on here, there'd be like million questions. So we've got one more question on here, which is how important is an artist's CV? And I think that's a question I get asked a million times a day. For you, when people submit to you, how important is that CV when you look at it for selection and etc.?
I think it is important. And but when I say important, I think what I personally look for, and it's different for everybody, so our selection committee members will look at it differently, I'm sure. I'm not necessarily looking for people to have gone to the best school and done the best degree or MA. That's not necessarily, I think it's more about being proactive. So it's showing that you are doing things. It's not like, you've sort of done a degree, then you've done a show, and then you've had like a 2-year break where you haven't bothered doing anything. And there's all this sort of disjointedness throughout the CV. Like, it feels like you're a bit of a bit part artist, if you like. I think to show that you're committed, and look, I get it, life experiences mean that sometimes you've got to go off and do another job, or you have kids, or whatever it may be. But I think maybe like showing that there's a consistent period of time where you're all dedicated to your practice. And I think that also feeds into, and why I'm probably interested in that also, is that those artists are the ones that succeed at the fair. Now, I've always said the fair is not for every artist. Like, if you're, really introverted, then it's going to be difficult. If you're not somebody that feels comfortable talking about their work and they prefer a gallerist to work on their behalf, again, it might not work for you. So there is a certain type of artist, I guess, that the fair does work for, and it's the ones that are maybe a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little bit more business-minded, perhaps. And that commitment to sort of their practice, I think, sort of. Yeah, it's interesting, because
I would, and I hope Hildegard wouldn't disagree with me here. I wouldn't say Hildegard is not the most outgoing of artists, and yet she was successful. I know that she really pushed herself out of her comfort zone. So, but she's a very committed, consistent exhibitor, always trying to do new things, set up a collaborative gallery, etc., etc. And I think you're absolutely right. If you're someone who's going to throw yourself into this, not think that there's going to be a plan B, but really fully commit to it, then that's for me. When I'm looking at an artist's CV, I'm looking at someone who's proactive, who's happy to invest, put their money where their mouth is, put their energy where their mouth is, really. So I think that's great answer. I think it is important, but it's not important to have a classic training. It's important to be committed to your craft, is what I would say. And can you explain a bit more about Pure 360 and what benefits you get? I did the other art fair. I absolutely would love to, Mona. So Art 360 is a brand new event that we've developed during lockdown, and it's very much using the technology that's available up to us right now to make something dynamic, to fill the void that is going to be missed in September and October by artists who can't participate in open studios, who can't participate in local art fairs. And it's a dynamic opportunity because it's interactive. So it's not just put your art online and we'll just do a big marketing campaign. No, we'll put it into a magazine that we will then promote, but the magazine is interactive. So it'll have video in it, it'll have live interviews in it, it'll have hyperlinks. And then 30 of the artists who submit will then be selected to do these. So these lives from their studio and sell direct to their audience. So instead of questions, well, there'll probably be questions as well. There'll be, do you want to buy this piece? Hold it up. Tell them how much it is, as you would in your studio through an Open Studios event, or as you would in your booth, you go, this is this piece and it's £300 or it's £600 or it's £2,000. If you're interested in that, yeah, great. Give me your details. I'll contact you and we'll do the transaction. So Art 360 has been developed to be dynamic, not just a static thing. And I'm hoping that we've already had loads of submissions. So I can see that we've hit a sweet spot, hopefully, of things that some people will find the lives difficult. I would say it's a bit like you said, art fairs aren't for everyone. Lives aren't for everyone. Open Studios isn't for everyone. But if you can be brave, we will be there to hold your hand, because you'll be doing an open studio with me as your curator. So all 30 will have me talking to them like this, having a chat, talking to them about their artwork, asking the questions, managing the questions online. So yeah, if you want to apply, pureartsgroup.co.uk, homepage, learn more, apply here. It's very straightforward. And there is a form. Sorry, there is a form. There's always a form. So I think we've got time for one more question. And Myrna, what's your collector's base like? Oh, I did live before I used to be a teacher. Our collector's base has been established since 2009, so it's quite robust. We sell at our art fairs in, like you said, in 4 days. We sell several hundred pieces of work every time. So I'm quite confident that our collector base will be there. But also what we've been doing during this time with these lives is creating a new audience for you. So we're seeing up to 30,000 people watching these lives. So that's the new audience that we're developing, and that's a worldwide audience. So yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. That has been fabulous. There were a lot of questions. We had a lot of questions. I knew we would, but that's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Have enjoyed yourself. And the guys always have loads of questions to ask. And if you've got more questions, how can they contact you directly after this?
Ryan@theotherartfair.com.
So if you don't mind putting that in the sidebar chat for everyone, contact Ryan. If you want to apply to the Other Art Fair, then go onto the website, the Other Art Fair, and there's a form. If you want to apply to Art 360, go onto the Pure Arts Group site, and there's a form, and you can fill out. And yeah, we'd love to have you. And I'm sure, you know, as things start to roll back out, we will, as the providers, make sure that everything's health and safety, and we'll do all the things we've said. Like keep Charlotte coming up with the ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep Charlotte on board, because we like Charlotte. How is all the other lovely people at the Other Art Fair?
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah,
everybody's still around and working hard. So
great. I had the privilege, as part of my masters, to interview lots of your staff. You probably remember.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah,
my masters, and it was a joy. And I did really well, and I'm now in the process of potentially doing a PhD. So watch this space. I might be back knocking on your door.
Great.
To do more. I loved it. Are you still all, not now, but you're still in your office in Covent Garden?
No, we recently moved to London Bridge.
Ah. Oh, I love
a bit more space.
Yeah.
I know, so did I. But
yeah, it's very buzzy, but brilliant. Well, give my love to everybody.
I shall.
Back at the homestead, and hopefully maybe in October, November, maybe come back and have another chat and let us know how it's going. But it's been brilliant. Thank you all so much for being here. That's all. Will be live on Facebook. That's all been live streamed on Facebook, so anyone can see it there. I'll download the video, and as always, that will be on the Pure Arts Group watch page. You can watch it at your leisure whenever you want to. Now, Ryan's son can have his headphones back.
Yeah, he can.
I'm sure your ears are burning by now. That must have really been
really
quite
tight.
really tight.
I'm like this.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. Super cool. Really enjoyed it. And we'll speak soon. I'm going to end the broadcast now. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.